Eating the grain would mean seizing a soul, or life. De 24. 6. Widows were especially protected, since often they would not have anyone to defend or assist them. The law forbade seizing a widow's garment as a pledge at all. De 24. 17. Compare Job 24. 3. Also, one could not enter a man's house to take a pledged item from him. The debtor was to bring the pledge out to his creditor. De 24. 10, 11. In this way the inviolability of the man's home was upheld, and he could maintain self-respect, which would hardly be so if his creditor felt at liberty to enter the man's home without invitation. Thus, in addition to compassion and generosity. De 15. 8. The laws about pledges encouraged respect for the person and rights of others. Illustrative use. Deuteronomy 15. 6 gave as a sign of God's blessing the fact that the Jews would have sufficient means to lend on pledge to many nations. If a person despised the word, by failing to repay a loan, he would forfeit what he put up as a pledge. In like manner a person would experience loss if he failed to obey God's commandment. PR 13. 13. In the Hebrew scriptures advice is repeatedly given against going surety for a stranger, thereby promising to pay that person's debt if he failed to do so. PR 11. 15. 22. 26, 27. See surety. Thus, Proverbs 20. 16 speaks of taking the garment of the one going surety for a stranger. This is in direct contrast to the sympathetic consideration to be shown the poor man who is obliged to become debtor to another because of his own misfortune. The one going surety for a stranger is not simply unfortunate but is stupid. The proverb evidently says to let him suffer the consequences. The latter part of the verse calls for seizing a pledge in the instance of a foreign woman. The man entering into relationship with such a woman may become impoverished. Compare PR 5. 3, 8-10, and so he may have to pledge his remaining possessions as security for his debts. The proverb apparently says that he merits no pity, inasmuch as he acted contrary to all sound advice in having dealings with the foreign woman. Plow. See farming implements. Plowing. Conclusions as to the type of plow used by Hebrew farmers. O text to acute miritra longo. Plummet 649 plowing time, though Israelite farmers were to keep the Sabbath. X 34. 21. A bull and an ass were not to be yoked to the same plow, doubtless because of the inequality of their strength and pace. De 22. 10. Often a pair of cattle pulled the plow. Lu 14. 19. Job 1. 14. A number of men, each with a pair, or span, of cattle, might work together, plowing parallel rows one behind the other. In Elisha's case, as related at 1 Kings 19. 19, he was the 12th and last, so he could stop without disrupting others following him. He left the field and used his wood plowing instruments as firewood in offering the bulls as a sacrifice. 1 Kai 19. 21. In the Land and the Book revised by J. Grand, 1910, p. 121, W. M. Thompson reports that one man could easily sow the area plowed by a group of men. Illustrative use. The familiar work of plowing often was used as the basis for an illustration. When Philistines convinced Samson's wife to obtain from him the answer to his riddle, Samson said they had plowed with his young cow, that is, used for their service one who should have been serving him. JG 14. 15-18. A rocky crag is no place for plowing, and as Amos shows, it was equally irrational for Israel's leaders to corrupt justice and practice unrighteousness and yet expect to derive benefit from such a course. Am 6. 12, 13. Hosea 10. 11. Evidently uses plowing a much harder work for a heifer than threshing was to represent laborious or slavish labor, likely imposed by foreign oppressors, that was due to common apostate Judah. What Judah and Israel needed, according to Jeremiah 4. 3, 4 and Hosea 10. 12, 13, was a change in their way of life, preparing, softening, and cleansing their hearts. Compare Lu 8. 5-15 is by plowing and removing thorns, so that, instead of wasting their efforts and labor in wrong practices that bring only a bad harvest, they might instead reap divine blessings. The description of the orderly, purposeful, and judicious methods of the farmer in plowing, harrowing, sowing, and threshing are used at Isaiah 28. 23-29 to illustrate the ways of Jehovah, who is wonderful in counsel, who has done greatly in effectual working. Even as plowing and harrowing are limited, being merely preparatory to sowing, so, too, Jehovah does not forever discipline or punish his people, but he disciplines primarily to soften them and make them amenable to receiving his counsel and guidance, which produce blessings. Compare Heb 12. 4-11. Even as the hardness of the soil governs the extent or intensity of the plowing, so the type of grain determines the force and weight of the instruments used for threshing to eliminate the chaff, all of this illustrating God's wisdom in cleansing his people and getting rid of whatever is undesirable, varying his treatment according to existing needs and circumstances. Compare Is 21. 10. 1. 25. A city plowed up as a mere field meant a city completely overturned and laid waste. J 26.